Crown besties, hey Crown family, welcome back to the Crown Room, the room where it's all about navigating life's complexities while keeping the faith. I'm rather feeling a bit antsy about today's episode. I don't know if it's a good antsy, I don't know if it's a bad antsy. All I know is that we are having a burial ceremony. Let me give you context. It's June. And usually in the month of June, this is the middle of the year, technically the middle of the year, And this is a time where we start reflecting on the things we've achieved, the goals we had, with the zeal that we entered in January with. Now, reflecting back on the conversations that we've been having in January, now is the time to go back to that. And let's have a bit of a recap of how our first season went so that we know how to navigate further our second season of the year. Having these conversations are quite a bit difficult. They're quite a bit challenging because we're either going to leave feeling energized or we're either going to leave feeling drained, because we had a list of things to do. We entered the year with New Year's resolutions. We entered the year with plans. We entered the year knowing that we want to do ABC, and now it's June. And when you reflect back, you didn't do ABC, you rather did DEF. And that is what I wanted to talk about today. Personally, I'm here to reflect about the ABCs I wanted to do, the ABCs I didn't do, and how I am planning to bounce back from that, right? First things first, we're going to talk about the plans that I had and which one of those I achieved and which one of those I didn't. The first one is health. Listen, I know I'm not the only one who's gonna relate to this. We enter the year thinking, okay, this is the year for me to start my health journey. What it's going to look like is me going on jogs. What it's going to look like is me going to the gym. I'm going to renew my membership. They've been waiting for me since I don't know which year. And I'm going to go there. I get there. First week, it's all good. I'm pumped up. I'm motivated. I see what I'm doing. I feel what I'm doing. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to account for the things that I consume, the things that I watch, the things that, I'm going to sleep longer. I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to be part of the 5 a.m. gang. And you blink. January was 5 minutes ago. Did I achieve all of those things? Let's find out. So, the first thing that I had is my health, right? I said I am focusing on getting healthier, not for the mere sake of losing weight, but for the mere sake of having and maintaining my mobility and flexibility. I think that's very important to take account of, especially as you grow older. So I don't do it for the fact that, no, I'm tired of being big-bodied or whatever. I just want to do it so that I can feel healthier. I think the word is stamina, just to have and boost your stamina and your immune system so that your body doesn't feel relaxed. I started my journey in January. I was taking walks, 5 kilometers. Some of my friends sometimes would walk with me just to keep me accountable. I had it. But this is before I went to work. I didn't anticipate the change that was going to happen and the consistency that I needed to keep when going back to work, that my schedule is going to change and I need to account for that. Did I account for that? No, I didn't. I ended up just giving up. Why? Because I realized that the minute I skipped a day, I get discouraged. The minute I skip 2 days, I get discouraged. The minute I skipped a week, it was shy. I stopped going on walks. The gym is probably still waiting for me. I had the forms, I just need to turn them back and go back to the gym. Did I go back? No, I didn't. They even called me, I think, a few months later asking what's going on, and I just said, no, I'll come now. I'm still trying to shuffle my schedule and try to figure out. And the biggest question that I had behind that thing is it a mental thing that you try to bring up excuses for the things that you can do? Because it's not necessarily about going to gym. It's not necessarily about going on walks. You can even do something in the house if you have to. In the morning, in the afternoon, coming back from work, at the back of the house, somewhere in the yard, just walk around the neighborhood and what's so not. And I realized that it's sort of a mental thing more than anything. My mental gets very discouraged when I start something and I lose the fuel as I'm going, okay? Now, we're also going to look at the goals that you had personally besides physical goals. Some of us wanted to read books. Some of us wanted to, just create a healthier environment for ourselves in terms of our mental health, our spiritual well-being, and what's or not. So I'm also going to tap into that a bit. One of the other goals that I had was I mentioned it in some of the episodes in January, that one of my biggest goals this year is to navigate my healing healthily, and that looked like having constant introspection of where I am mentally, and I started investing in reading books. Well, did I finish the books? No, I didn't. But I did read the books, and from the information that I get, I'm using it to actually try to navigate more healthily around that. So I could say that was a bit of a success because I'm more aware of where I am mentally. I try to hold myself accountable where I can. I'm not exactly where I want to be, but the important thing is I'm not where I was. That is more important than anything, and that is what constantly keeps me going. The mere fact that I genuinely prayed and became intentional about having people in my community that will hold me accountable without actually them even realizing that they're holding me accountable. It literally took just having conversations with my colleagues, with my friends. We would have conversations about something so unrelated, but at the end of the day, I would leave actually feeling better and feeling that there's a growth or contribution that is happening to me navigating healthy. So looking back at the January me and now, I would say that I'm in a good space. I'm in a good space. I find myself in good spaces. I find myself in spaces that invest in me. I'm being honest right now. I'm facing a little bit of a burnout because part of me navigating healthily, the things that you need to let go of, the things that you need to unlearn before you actually start venturing into these. And I feel that I went a little bit hard. I went a little bit hard on how I want to invest in my community, that I became overly available, and that essentially meant my cup running out before it was actually even meant to run out. So I'm in a little bit of a middle year fatigue, but we'll bounce back, because what matters is the fact that I was able to be aware of that, and the people around me made me aware of that I'm not so chatty anymore, I'm not so bubbly anymore, what is going on? And I sat down with myself and I realized this is the time for me to just sit down. And that is why I felt that it's essential to have this episode where we're reflecting on things like that, because honestly speaking, it's so energizing when you're around people and we are hyping each other up on the things that we want to do for the year, the plans that we have for the year, and we are here now. We need to take what did we do, what didn't we do. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover all of the aspects, my wins, my losses, and my what's or nots. But what matters is where my mind is right now about the things that matters. Because one thing I know that will pull down a bit, or that will pull one down a bit, or that will drain you, is that when we look at our failures, we literally forget our wins. So it's so important to hold them both to a certain standard, and reframing the failures into not into you failed in doing this, but into how am I going to reframe this and reset? Because this is not a restart, but it's a reset. It's not a restart from zero, it's a reset from the things that you experience and the things that you know. One of my other wins was career wise. I think I'm doing very good. I just attended graduation recently. I haven't posted a vlog about it, but I just attended graduation recently, and that is one of the best moments I've ever had in my life. Sometimes we look down a bit on graduation, especially if it starts becoming a reoccurring event that you have to attend every year. It starts becoming too familiar. But one thing that I reflected on highly is how much I've grown. Like, it was so deep, and it is that deep for me, okay? Hear me out. It is that deep for me because it was not only a reflection of the parents and the students making it through, but it was more about how I've also grown and how encountering a group of students actually pushed me to things that I didn't know. So I'll actually say that was a win personally for me, that was a win because I've learned things about myself that I didn't know I knew until I actually encountered my students. So shout out to them. Shout out to them, love them down, love them down. I've been pushed to my limits and reflecting because restarting the year is not necessarily about restarting everything from January onwards. We are not wiping the board, like I said in January. We are carrying the things we were carrying last year and the year before that and the years before that, right? And we are taking things off of our list. The one thing I'm definitely going to take off my list is the amount of resilience that I had from last year this time to now. 360 mang days later, 370 mang days later, I'm in a better space. Mentally, I'm in a better space. Emotionally, I'm in a better space. I'm navigating it better. I've become aware of things that triggers me. I've become aware on how to navigate around frustrating situations. And knowing me, if you know me, I'm a very short-tempered person. If you don't know, ask my sister. I'll send you her number. I'm a very short-tempered person, and I've just been learning how to navigate around that. And when I'm not in a good space, I've never really been a person to communicate when I'm not in a good space. I isolate. I think we've spoken about that in the episodes with Ghost Lady, a few other guests that we've had. I isolate a lot when I'm going through something. But now I'm in a space where I am able to communicate when I'm not in a good space and allow the people in my community to be there for me. I speak to my friends. The problem that I still have though is oversharing because the dangers that comes with communicating with people in your community, the amount of discernment that you need to have with what you share with other people is so important. And I think that is somewhat a loss because um I'm a bit I think we'll talk about it in another episode. But I've realized that I've overshared with people I thought whom are in my community. But I forgot to account for the fact that not everyone in your community is actually wishing you the best. They're only there to benefit from you, right? And one thing about me, when I face such a betrayal, I cannot and I will not tolerate being in the same space as that person because it's a huge amount of betrayal. We're not here to talk about that, though. We're still here to talk and account for the wins. Another win that I had was spiritually. I said to myself that I am going to invest in going to church, okay? I am going to invest in going to church every Sunday, regardless of what happens. I'm going to church. I'm not there yet, but I'm not where I was. I usually had this habit of skipping church. If I skip church this Sunday, I'm going to skip church next Sunday, and it becomes a constant habit. But now I know how to bounce back. If I don't go to church, I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I am going to take action and go back to church the next weekend, right? And I committed to a few things at church that was able to hold me and help me be accountable to the spiritual growth that I want, and so that I'm able to serve to the best of my ability. So that was another win. I'm, like I said, I'm not where I was, I'm not where I am, but I'm here. And that is a personal win for me. I think another win that I want to talk about is, okay, all of these wins that I keep on mentioning are not necessarily, they are wins, but they came with a downside of it. So the other one I want to talk about that is very, very personal is this journey that I'm on in podcasting. I did not think or anticipate of the amount and the weight of the responsibility that comes with podcasting, that comes with having something to say and finding something to say even when you're not in a good space. And really, shout out to my social media manager. Shout out to my director. Shout out to those people. They held me down. They held me accountable. And one thing about my social media manager, man, that girl deserves a Bugatti. That girl deserves a Bugatti because if there's one person that held me accountable, that regardless of how you feel, regardless of how down you feel, never ever make excuses. Show up when you can. And I'm a bit proud of myself for that. Podcasting is a very difficult journey to navigate. And we needed to be honest and sit down and have a conversation and reflect on the goals that we had because before we even launched this, we had a lot of plans, a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations. Now came the execution. I didn't account for the amount of responsibility that should come with the execution. There are things that weren't executed, there are things that have been executed, but now we need to sit back, sit down, and see if we are where we want to be, and see if we are and how we are going to get to where we want, right? So, yes, finally, I've gotten the equipment, I've gotten the mic. I'm no longer just going to be a girl that's going to sit down, open the mic, and start recording, but I need to hold myself accountable for the types of conversations that I'm bringing on this platform so that I don't misdirect the aim of these conversations that we're meant to have. This is a platform where we are navigating life through faith. So that means every aspect of life. And I'm really thankful that I have the people around me to hold me accountable. Is January me? The June me? Let's find out. Let's go back to the main point that I made in January, which is arriving as honestly as possible, meeting yourself where you are and starting from where you are and going forward. The one thing that I said is I'm going to arrive and navigate as honestly as possible. I didn't say to 100% honesty, but as honestly to myself as possible. Now, this meant having difficult conversations with my community, right? Whether it's about the relationship or the interaction that I have with them, that also meant honesty with the relationship that I have with myself, with the delusions that I fed myself about certain relationships that existed. The biggest thing, I've been saying the biggest thing. If I had $1 for saying the biggest thing, I'd be a millionaire. But the biggest thing also was what I've spoken about in the previous month, where I've had relationships that I've had to let go of. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but I knew that they were not contributing to the healthy version of me, the healthy version of the person I'm trying to become. And one of my biggest wins was actually being able to navigate through that difficulty. We've spoken about a lot about the things that I've been through, but what I realized is that we didn't go through what I did to go through that, right? We are gonna have an episode on that, I promise you, besties. But right now, I'm just focusing on my wins. The loss that came with that was that I let go of relationships that I thought were good. But the wins that came with that is that I'm in a healthier space with myself and I'm able to identify when I'm in a toxic or I'm having toxic. I'm able to identify. We've had conversations with Didi in Red Flag April. And most of these conversations that I have here in the crown room does not necessarily end in the crown room, okay? I ponder on it a lot. I ponder on my losses, the grieving people that are alive, grieving relationships that should have existed, grieving things, grieving the future things that you wanted, your car, your marriage, your relationships, and stuff like that. That is why this conversation is so important. We're reflecting back on the things that we thought we'd have now and accounting for them, not with regret, like I said. Let's look back at them. Now, I was able to navigate healthily through my losses. I was able to navigate my losses, turned and reframed those losses into them becoming a reframing of my mind and how I should approach certain things. So, shout out to the crown room. Shout out to the crown room. Shout out to my community. Shout out to the people that are around me. Unfortunately, like I said, not everyone around you has the best intentions for you. But what I'm grateful for in that part is that my heart will always remain my heart and I will always remain my character and I don't allow it to affect the person that I am, rather. I just know how to navigate around certain individuals, right? Because I've also discovered a lot of things about the community that I'm in. I thought it's a win until I realized and I hear people's intentions and I see. This is why discernment is so important, and this is why I will always account for the fact that my spiritual well-being is important more than anything, because that is where my discernment comes. That is where my wisdom comes, that even when you find these losses, even when you find these betrayals, you still are able to navigate healthily and not bitterly through them. If you look back, there was an episode where I was talking about betrayal and how I even made an analogy of the story of David and Saul and the things that Saul was doing to David and planning for David, but David still conquered. So it's not necessarily about David, beating the Goliaths. We have slayed those Goliaths, but now we are talking about Sauls. A loss is a loss, a win is a win. Now, let us start reframing our minds and start reflecting on the things we thought we'd do. Let us reflect on who we've become in the past 5, 6 months. I don't know if we're gonna count December in the year because December is a year on its own, but let us navigate healthily towards the rest of the year. Let us enter the second half of the year with a good reflection, not a bad reflection. Let us start resetting our minds. Not a reset, yeah? Not a restart, a reset with the experience that we had, with the betrayals that we faced and how we now know how to deal with it, with the wins that we had. Let the wins be as good as the losses. Don't look at the losses because they're gonna drain you. They're gonna drain you, Michael. They're gonna drain you and you're not gonna feel like waking up. Because honestly speaking, when we think and account for the losses, we lose motivation. We become so discouraged that not even motivational speaks or not even motivational videos will get you out of that bed. Okay, you will have a season where you just want to be in bed because you are so discouraged, you are so demotivated, you don't know what you did, you don't know what you should do, and stuff like that. That is the other part of honesty that I need to bring. That I didn't get here because I always felt motivated every day. I didn't get here because I woke up every day and felt the zeal. I've had a month where I've just become so discouraged. I don't know what I want to talk about in the crown room anymore because nothing in my life was making sense, right? Those are the losses sometimes that comes. Those are the discouragements that come sometimes, right? I think, am I actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I where I want to be? You had a timeline for yourself, you set a specific timeline, and you're not actually there. You're not actually there. Let's be honest about that. You thought you were going to go and do this tomorrow, but tomorrow you wake up and suddenly, I don't know, you're PMSing or something and you lose the motivation to be there. But let's be honest about these conversations. I've had plenty of conversations with the people around me, like I've said. And in these conversations, I also learned a lot about myself, that I'm able to help another person without actually projecting their problems onto me. Because one thing about me, I used to be a person that carries people's problems, but I was able to show up for people without feeling somewhat. I don't know if I'm making sense. Without feeling heavy, right? I've been yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping, reflecting on my wins and losses, but now I'm going to leave the responsibility to you, my chum. Here is a closing reflection for all of us, for me included. How about we, number one, plan a mid-year funeral? Deep, I know. Let's plan a mid-year funeral. Let's look at the things and the expectations, the habits, the mindsets we had that were carrying us down and bury them. Let's let them go. The negative mindset, the negative perspectives, looking at a glass as half empty instead of half full. How about we change that perspective and bury it? Number two, let's do an audit on our a graceful audit, if I can call it that, a grateful audit. Let's reflect on the things that we're grateful for, the areas that we've grown, the things we've achieved, even though we haven't achieved them to an exact expectation. Let's look at our wins. Personally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially as well. Because some of us had savings plans, but our money is not where it's supposed to be. Did we give up? Maybe some of us did. Maybe some of us didn't. But let us be grateful for the mere fact that we are still able to wake up and be grateful for having a mere breath in our lungs, to wake up and try again. Because Obomi Abumanga. Obomi Abumanga. Whether you reached your savings plan, your savings goal, or you didn't, you're still here and you can still restart it. Which brings me to point number 3. Let's refresh the vision. Not because the other one failed, but your vision is allowed to evolve with you. You've evolved. The January you isn't the June you. So let your plans also evolve. Let your goals, your objectives also evolve. This is just me saying, just because you haven't reached your goals, you're not the only one. Just because you're not where you are or where you wanted to be, you're not the only one. Just because you had losses, you're not the only one. We all have losses, we all have wins. Now, let us all hold each other accountable. Let us be a community where we invest in ourselves and our well being so that we can experience the best versions of ourselves. The last thing you want to do is be in your 40s and regret and give advice to the younger ones on how they should have lived their 20s and 30s and what you didn't do and what you should have done because you wasted your time feeling sorry for yourself. Let us wake up, my children. This is not just a message for you, it's a message for myself as well. So I feel this personally and deeply. Let us have a good reflection so that we know what to do. That is it. We're going to talk in the next episode on what and how we are reimagining the second half of the year. So if you have reached this far, thank you so much for tuning in, my lovely crown besties, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Please don't forget to comment, please don't forget to share, please don't forget to subscribe so that you're part of the notification gang. Lots of love from your lovely host. Masesi is the name, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.